Hello, this is Todd. I am coming out of St. Petersburg, Russia. Estonia was recently in the news because there was a major shift in the government. What had happened is that the sitting prime minister by the name of Yuri Ratas, he was essentially charged, and I don't know what the exact process over there is in Estonia. I had lived there, but he was implicated in a large-scale bribery scandal, at least large-scale by Estonian standards. It was interesting because if you look at what happened as a result is that there was a shakeup in their government, and the sitting prime minister by the name of Kersti Kaljulaid. What happened is that there was a shakeup, and essentially the current president, Kersti Kaljulaid, has taken a position where she said that we had replaced the current government, and now 6 of the 14 members of the cabinet of their highest positions, these are the equivalent of a Secretary of State, or in these cabinet roles, 6 of the 14 over there are women now, which is unbelievable when you think about the population, the kind of qualifications required to go into these sorts of jobs. That's 6 of the 14. Now, this ties into something that I had said before, and something I still believe, which is that Estonia very much is what I would call a 21st century matriarchy. What I mean by that is that it's a country that is dominated by single mothers. If you look at the amount of children there who are born to unwed mothers, it's actually the majority. So there's a very dysfunctional social fabric that you find in that country, and I think that this plays out in other aspects of the life. We've heard the phrase that politics is downwind from culture, which I believe in. I don't care who says a quote or makes an assumption about something, even if I don't necessarily like the person or agree with the person that says it, the principle or the idea itself could actually be true, and I think that this is no exception. So when you look at Estonia, is that it's a country that has constantly been a parcel at the whims of larger, say, pan-national states. You have the Slavs, you had the Russian Empire, and then you had the National Socialist German Empire, the Greater Third Reich, and a number of other empires. And I think that this had a deep impact on the country, and especially going into the 20th century, 21st century, is that now we have a situation where you have the prime minister. Her name's Kaja Kallas, and she is of the Reform Party in Estonia. So you have a woman who's the prime minister, you have a woman who is the president, Kersti Kaljulaid, and when we think about this, it's incredible when you think about the kind of functions that would be required of someone in this kind of role. And it makes one think, is this really being done on the basis of meritocracy, or is it simply a political agenda? Of course, it's politics, so there's always political agendas, but this is very much a political decision. And if you think about the direction that that government is heading, I think that it really is not going in the right direction. Apparently, the current president, Kersti Kaljulaid, officially she's not of any party. She was associated with what was called the Matriarchy party in the past, and then apparently left the party. Now, my question is this, is that if you look at the direction that country is headed in, and the amount of criticism that the prior administration had taken, the prior coalition government, because they had integrated what was considered a nationalist political party. It was called AKRA, and essentially it translates to the Conservative National People's Party, something like this. And they had worked with what was the Center Party. Now, the sad part about all of these parties, whether we're talking Reform, Center, etc., is these are all considered right-wing or center right-wing, and this is why I say that the conservatives, not only in America but around the world, are pathetic, because if this is what's considered right-wing, it's how is this the right wing? You have a lot of really bad principles that are being adopted, and yet these are considered right-wing. And we see the same thing in America. We see the same thing in other European countries. And eventually how this plays out is that you have a government that on paper is, quote, right-wing, but is, as I said before, essentially a 21st century matriarchy. I expect that you're going to see even a greater shift toward a larger welfare state, more welfare initiatives being pursued. You're going to see freedoms put under the microscope, let's say, because if you look at the support for freedom of speech, it's typically significantly less among women than it is among men. So if you have these women in positions of power, they could put significant impositions on freedoms like the freedom of speech or the ability to be able to communicate certain ideas. They could definitely use the social media outlets to impose their will as well. So I don't like the direction I see all of these Western states heading, to put it frankly. And I don't wish them harm. I wish that these states could come out of their slumber and maybe realize the grave danger that they're in, because they're not only pursuing an agenda that could destroy them economically, they're also destroying their demographics, which is something that cannot be replaced. As we can see from the former Soviet Union, even if a country is destroyed economically, if the demographics are still intact, it can be preserved. Now, if the demographics are destroyed as well, it's a lost cause at that point. And I see that as the future trajectory of Estonia and the European Union as a whole. One of the reasons why I chose to leave is because I see this growing state apparatus, this inability to come to grips with some of the mistakes that are being made. And I think this is eventually going to come back to haunt the country. And even if the people over in Estonia do realize that they have made a lot of mistakes, will be able to change anything? I mean, they are already making large-scale commitments as far as their future political trajectory, and most of the people that I had encountered when I lived there were, like, if they were guys, they were extremely blue-pilled. They had very little will to simply hold women to any standards. This is the norm over there. Dating environment, of course, was terrible. I always tell you guys, if you're going to move to Estonia, be prepared to go monk, because you're going to have a very difficult time in their dating market. I'm anticipating the negative comments saying that my expectations are too high or that I need to do something different, but believe me, I've lived in other countries. I did just fine in the dating markets in other countries. Estonia was the big anomaly as far as that was concerned, so I guess it shouldn't be any surprise. And Estonia, I think, is really on the path to destruction, but if this is the will of the people, it's the will of the people. So as we can learn from other countries, it should serve as a warning of what not to do.